Hello and welcome back to Green Money Momentum, where we talk about market movements, making money, and money momentum. I am your host with the most, Trevor, and we are here again for another top 3 stocks for the month of. This time it is for the month of May. So for all investors who have made it this far, give yourself a round of applause. Congratulations. The markets have been very bloody this year, and there has been a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so if you've made it this far, that means you are a strong investor. And recently we have started to see a bit of a recovery in the markets. So hopefully that continues. And what we're investing into this month, I see a lot of potential in these plays here. So we're going to start out with one of my favorite stocks, and that is QBTS D-Wave Quantum. So this is a quantum computing stock, and the overall quantum computing sector is very interesting. So I see a lot of investors online missing out on quantum. They talk about AI and the real world use of AI and how AI is going to change our lives, but they don't always look at quantum. And quantum is going to play a big part in the future because quantum computers are basically like classical computers on steroids. So they are supercomputers that are meant to take real-time data, compress that data, and solve issues in a much more real-world sense. And D-Wave Quantum claims they have already reached quantum supremacy. So in my opinion, this is the strongest quantum computing stock out there. And when we just look at the trend in this stock, we could see that we are on an overall bullish trend upwards. So I have these 3 lines drawn out. This is just to show the major support and resistance levels in QBTS. So we could see since the beginning of the year that this stock has been following right along this trend line here. So we have popped all the way up to $10, fallen back to these middle levels of support, fallen to the bottom, but maintained on this level. So most recently, we have once again bounced off that lower level of support, and now we are looking to rise back up to the $9 and $10 range. And what is really positive coming up is we should continue to see some momentum because this is a very big week for D-Wave Quantum as they are going to be releasing their earnings. And this is the number that I want investors to really focus on here. So 10.5 million revenue. That is their estimation for the Q1 of 2025. And this is absolutely massive because when we look at the history of D-Wave Quantum, we could see that they have actually never reached above $2 million revenue per quarter. So this is supposed to be their first quarter where they see double-digit revenue, a 4x from all their previous revenues that were reported. So this is absolutely massive. The news that their revenue was going to be this came off of their last earnings report where we did see the pop in the stock. So we saw D-Wave reach that high up to $12, and then the overall macroeconomic trends kind of beat up this stock like many others. But if their revenue expectations are correct, if they do see 10 million, that will be huge, and hopefully it's even more than that. Hopefully they can really beat the Wall Street expectations. And the reason why their revenue is growing so much again is because D-Wave Quantum has claimed to reach quantum supremacy. And so D-Wave Quantum has claimed to already reach quantum supremacy. They are working with a bunch of different customers, and their quantum computers are solving real world issues. And so this was recently, there was a peer-reviewed paper published in Science that validated that D-Wave's annealing quantum computer solved a magnetic material simulation problem that is beyond the capabilities of classical supercomputers. And so not only this, but the simulation only took minutes to solve on D-Wave's system, which would require nearly 1 million years and more electricity than the world's annual consumption on a GPU-based supercomputer. So despite what the NVIDIA CEO said earlier this year about how quantum is about 20 years away from any real-world use or any real-world applications, we could see that D-Wave has already worked on problems that couldn't even be solved with a classical computer. So that shows strength in QBTS and is opposite of what the NVIDIA CEO has said. But despite that, there is a lot of bears in quantum. So I am very bullish on D-Wave Quantum and the overall quantum sector, but not everybody is. We could see that we have a high short interest on D-Wave of 16%. So this is really huge, because when it comes to short interest, anytime you get into the double digits, that is a crazy amount of short interest. And D-Wave is already a volatile stock. So maybe we'll see something similar to like a squeeze coming up into their earnings, which again is this upcoming week on Thursday. And those aren't the only bears in quantum. There's also this right here, and that is that this law firm has recently filed an investigation against D-Wave. So they say that they have no credible plan to transition to a viable gate model quantum computer, and that essentially they are a marketing gimmick. So they are claiming that D-Wave Quantum isn't actually using any quantum computers. They are just using classical computers, and they are basically scamming investors. With lawsuits in the markets, this happens all the times. Anytime a play drops, or if there's a little bit of bad news, all of a sudden you see the investigations start to come in. So for me, this is no concern. And I personally believe that this is ridiculous, especially because with D-Wave Quantum, we have already seen how they have already solved issues with their quantum computer. So they have already shown strength there, and then they are very public. So if you type in on YouTube D-Wave Quantum CEO, you could see a lot of different interviews with Alan Baratz, the CEO of Quantum, and they recently did have a quantum event in Scottsdale just last month. So this company is very public and very open about what they do. So with this investigation, I think that this is ridiculous, and I think that this will just pass on through. Overall, I am very excited once again for QBTS. And again, we just bounced off this lower level of support. So when we did have this massive jump, this was earlier in March off their positive earnings report. And so what I am hoping for and what I am expecting is to get another positive earnings report. I'm wanting to break through this middle line and possibly back up to the all-time highs that we have seen in quantum and in QBTS. Which leads me to my next stock. Talking about earnings, we just had an earnings report this last week with this stock here, BigBearAI, ticker symbol being BBAI. And this stock actually showed a lot of strength. So if you guys haven't seen my video, I definitely recommend checking it out. I actually did a live reaction to the Big Bear earnings, and there was an immediate drop off of about 10% or so, but the stock did recover nicely, and their earnings were pretty decent overall. So they did miss the earnings per share expectations set by Wall Street, but their revenue was good and showed a 5% increase year over year. When we look at just the technicals on this stock, we could see that we got beaten up pretty badly recently. So Big Bear was all the way up to $10.50 before we did see a hard retraction. We fell more than 70%. The stock was under $3, but most recently we have had a decent recovery. This is off some big news that they recently got a government contract. And overall, I am seeing a lot of strength in this stock. So when we look again at the candlesticks, we could see that we are right at the 200-day moving average. When we look at the MACD, we are right in the middle there. And then on the RSI, we are getting to the middle, but we still have some potential room to grow. And if you're not sure what BigBearAI is, well, Big Bear is a growing company. So a lot of people like to compare this company to Palantir. They work with AI, and they also work a lot with the government in the defense sector. And so Palantir is a much bigger company, but some look at Big Bear kind of like the little brother to Palantir. And that is because this company in general is still small and still growing. So we could see right here, they have a market cap value right under $1 billion. So with all the trading, Big Bear has been basically going up to $1 billion market cap and falling right back under, but still in that small market cap range. When we look at the volume history, we could see that their volume was highest in February. And this is because there was a big announcement about how Big Bear had recently gained a big government contract, which is right on par with what Big Bear has been doing. So recently we saw Big Bear gain another big government contract with the submarine deal with Austal. And this goes all the way back to last year when we saw Big Bear gain their big $165 million Army contract. And so Big Bear has a CEO with ties back to the Department of Defense and then also Trump. And so this company company is gaining a lot of big government contracts, which is very positive. That's what we have been seeing, saying that we want to see for Big Bear. We want to see them continue to gain big government contracts while paying down their big debt. So this is the one negative behind Big Bear, and that is that they have a decent amount of debt. So when we just look at their long-term annual debt in millions of US dollars, we can see that there are some pretty high numbers there. But overall, again, Big Bear has been gaining a lot of big government contracts, and they do have their new CEO, Kevin. When we look at the storyline behind Big Bear, it looks like Big Bear is just going to continue to grow, and we just need to see them continue to pay down that debt. Which brings me to the last stock here, which is one of the favorites on this channel. Talking about Trump, well, this is the stock all behind him. This is his initials right here, DJT, Trump Media and Technology Group. And this stock recently has been gaining a lot of momentum. So we fell pretty low on DJT. We were back into the teens, right? So we were at the $18, $19 mark before we recently saw this big bounce. And so right now, you could see the two lines I have drawn out here. This is just to show the major support behind DJT. So over the last year, we have seen this be a pretty high flying stock. We have seen this up in the 30s, 40s, 50s, but each time it did fall back down to this range between $21 and $27. The only time we fell below it was right before the elections, where we saw that swift recovery, and then most recently when we fell again. But DJT in general has been gaining a lot of intrinsic value in the background. We have been talking about this on this channel, and how DJT in general is trying to push us more into the mass adoption into cryptocurrency. We had this big news where DJT and Trump Media is going to be working alongside with Crypto.com to be releasing some big crypto ETFs. So then we also had the new SEC chairman, Paul Atkins, get into office. And this is absolutely huge. We have been talking about this since last year, since before Trump even got back into office. The old SEC chairman, Gary Gensler, was terrible. He put a lot of plays under lawsuits, and most notably was XRP. So he was not a big fan of cryptocurrency, where Paul Atkins is the complete opposite. And even right here on this article he says that the crypto sector deserves more clear regulations. And so that is very positive. DJT trying to push us more into the mass adoption into cryptocurrency, having the crypto ETFs, and now having a new head of the SEC that is better friends with Trump and is not going to oppose him like Gary Gensler would. So that is very positive. I think the mass adoption into cryptocurrency is just like we are continuing right on that trend. Then we have this here. This is from Truth Social, and I like what Trump wrote here in all caps, and he said that this is a transition stage. And so again, the markets have been feeling a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt this year, a lot because of interest rates and then also tariffs. But we know with the tariffs, with each set of tariffs, they have just been a bigger negotiating tactic behind Trump, and the tariffs weren't as bad as many were expecting. And so each time the tariffs would come out with these crazy high numbers, and each time Trump would come back and roll it back. So even with the most famous recently, the big Liberation Day, there was so much fear, uncertainty, and doubt. People thought this was the end. People thought this was going to be the beginning of a big war with China. But we've already seen Trump say how the tariffs are being rolled back, and he just wants to negotiate with China. And so overall, we just need to give the president more time. Just like that Truth Social post said, this is a transition period. And so overall, the markets do look like they are continuing to recover. When we just look at some of the major indexes here, let me pull up the triple Qs here. This is the NASDAQ. When we pull up the NASDAQ, we could see that recently we broke out of that nasty trend that had started right around the inauguration, and now it looks like we are recovering for a great W. And so some like to say stay away in May. That is the old adage when it comes to the markets, but myself, I am always bullish on the markets. So I'm adding to these three great plays that I talked about here. I see a lot of potential in quantum. I am very excited for the earnings report that is coming Thursday for QBTS. I am also very bullish with the Big Bear. They are gaining a lot of big government contracts while paying down their debt. I believe that this trend will continue with Big Bear, and Big Bear is all around us. So some like to joke that Big Bear is like Big Brother, because when you go to the airports, they use their face scan technology on you, and you see their company and logo everywhere. And of course, I am very bullish on the stock DJT. We have been talking about this since last year, and it was actually the first stock I I ever talked about on this channel. So if you go back and scroll through my videos, you'll see the first ever video I made was the top 3 stocks for the month of October. And we started with the stock DJT. And that is just because over the next 4 years, Trump is going to be your president. And so not only will that stock push up when it comes to news around Trump, it could move kind of like a meme stock, but also because of all the intrinsic value behind DJT. And so Trump is pushing us more into the mass adoption into cryptocurrency, while Trump media and technology is benefiting from this, positioning themselves in great opportunities for the massive rise that will happen in cryptocurrency. But I would love to hear what everyone else has to say about these stocks in the comments section below. Please let me know if you're bullish on Quantum, if you're bullish on Big Bear, if you're bullish on DJT, or if there's any other stocks that you're bullish on or you would like me to talk about. So please drop a comment in the section below. Please leave a like and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Thank you all so much. I appreciate everyone who comes to these videos. I'll see you in the next one.